Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a really focused look into Japan's Public Security Intelligence Agency, the PSIA.
Right. We've gathered quite a bit of information, mainly drawing from, well, publicly available summaries like Wikipedia, to piece together a picture of this agency.
Exactly. And our mission today is to sort of cut through everything and pull out the most important bits, what you really need to know.
Think of it as a quick way to get up to speed on the PSIA. Its history, its job, what it actually does, its reputation, all the key stuff.
Perfect for anyone wanting to quickly understand this pretty significant piece of Japan's security puzzle.
Definitely. So where should we start? Origins.
Yeah, let's start at the beginning. The official date is July 25th, 1952. That's when the PSIA, as we know it, was formed.
But the story doesn't just start there, does it? It has roots. Predecessor agencies.
Right. You had the Investigation Bureau, or IB, under the Home Ministry back in 46. Then the Internal Affairs Bureau's second office in 48.
And also the Special Investigation Board, the SIB. That was under the Attorney General's office, also starting around 1948, wasn't it?
Yes, exactly. And the PSIA basically picked up where the SIB left off.
And that SIB itself was actually set up by the Allied forces during the occupation. That's a key point.
It is. And it's interesting where some of the early staff came from, too.
You mean from the old Tokumuki-kan, the pre-war intelligence group?
Yeah. Many recruits were apparently from there, led by officials from the pre-occupation Ministry of Justice. It suggests a sort of continuity, even through massive political change.
A fascinating thread running through it all. And the legal basis for the PSIA itself.
That came from enforcing the Subversive Activities Prevention Law. That was the trigger.
Okay, so that sets the stage. Now, what's its core role today? What do the PSIA do?
Fundamentally, it's Japan's domestic intelligence agency, the Kanshusatsu.
Public Security Investigation Agency, literally. Tells you quite a bit. And it falls under the Ministry of Justice.
Right. And its main jobs are internal security and dealing with espionage threats. Anything that could undermine Japan's national security.
And that's all based on those laws you mentioned, the Subversive Activities Prevention Act.
Yes, and also the act regarding the control of organizations which committed indiscriminate mass murder. That second one points towards groups like Aum Shinrikyo, I imagine.
Makes sense. But how do they operate? Can they just investigate anyone?
No, there's a check. They need approval from the Public Security Examination Commission, the PSEC.
Ah, right. So for any investigation or crackdown, they need the PSEC's green light.
Exactly. It's an oversight mechanism.
So it's not just an internal decision within the PSIA or the Ministry of Justice.
Correct. And beyond investigations, they also feed information into government policy, right?
Yes, they do. They provide intelligence, both foreign and domestic, specifically on organizations they deem subversive.
And that info helps shape policy, security strategies, maybe new laws.
Presumably, yes.
Yeah.
That's the idea. Giving policymakers the data they need.
And they also release some information publicly. I think I read about some reports.
They do. Two main annual ones, the Naigai Shusei no Kaiko to Tenbo. That's the overview of the security situation inside and outside Japan.
Okay. And the other?
The Kukusai Terrorism Yuran, the International Terrorism Report.
So you get a glimpse into their thinking, though obviously not the whole picture.
Not by a long shot, no. But it's something.
Now, this is interesting. The idea that the PSIA might become the base for a new foreign intelligence agency, that sounds like a big shift.
It really does.
Yeah.
There's been talk for a while about Japan needing stronger foreign intelligence capabilities. And the PSIA, well, it has the structure, the experience.
So it's seen as a potential foundation to build on.
Sort of, yeah. A logical starting point if Japan decides to significantly ramp up its foreign intelligence game. It would be a major development in their global security posture.
Let's talk about some specific cases. Their history seems pretty varied.
Oh, absolutely. Back in the Cold War, you had groups like the Japanese Red Army as a major focus.
Right. But more recently.
Aum Shinrikyo is probably the most prominent example, especially after the 1995 sarin attack.
A defining moment, surely.
Definitely. Though it's worth mentioning there was criticism back then. Some felt the PSIA maybe should have been monitoring them more closely beforehand.
Especially given IAM was trying to get biological weapons and things like that.
Exactly. It highlights the difficulty of spotting threats before they act.
And they didn't just stop watching at IAM after the attack, right? The surveillance continued.
Oh, for years. They looked into IAM trying to set up software firms, for instance. Worries about tech misuse.
I see. And there was that inspection in 2012.
Right, of a building linked to the group. The PSIA report basically said, no change in its dangerous nature. Strict surveillance is essential. Still a threat.
And even recently, like 2019, they were putting out videos.
Yeah, an anti-IM video to warn the public about successor groups like Aleph. They investigated an ILF facility in 2016, too.
And raided that other group, Hikari Noa, back in 2007.
Yes, Fumihiro Joyu's group. Concerns about his continued ties to Shoko Asahara's teachings. It shows a really long-term focus on that particular threat.
Okay, another long-running target seems to be Chongryon, the Association for Korean Residents.
Correct. That's been a consistent focus due to suspected espionage for North Korea.
Espionage. That's serious.
Very. The Ministry of Justice has even specifically requested funds just for intelligence gathering on North Korean spying.
Were there specific incidents?
Well, there was a raid on Chongryon facilities back in 2004 when some leaders were being sentenced. And intelligence efforts definitely ramped up after Kim Jong-il died in 2011. Concerns about money flowing to North Korea.
And didn't their HQ end up being sold to a former PSIA head? That seems odd.
It was certainly a notable development, yes. Quite the turn of events.
It wasn't just domestic groups or North Korea, though. What about international terrorism?
Right. They investigated their French al-Qaeda guy, Lionel Dumont, in 2004. Concerns he was trying to set up a cell in Japan. So yes, they do get involved in international counterterrorism when it touches Japanese soil.
And more recently, their focus seems to be broadening economic security, cyber stuff.
That's a really important shift. In April 2022, they set up specific offices for economic security and cybersecurity.
Why the change?
I think it reflects the reality of 21st century threats. It's not just spies and terrorists anymore. Protecting sensitive tech, critical infrastructure that's national security now, preventing tech outflow is a big priority.
Yeah, and there was that allegation in 2023, the pro-Chinese mole claim.
Ah, yes, from Hideji Suzuki. That's a pretty explosive claim. Still unverified, mind you.
He was arrested in China for spying, and he claims someone inside PSIA helped the Chinese.
That's what he alleged. Said the Chinese even showed him photos that looked like they came from PSIA ID documents. If true, that would be a major internal security breach. Very serious questions.
Okay, let's switch focus slightly. What about the agency itself? How is it structured?
Sure. Headquarters are in Chiyoda, Tokyo. Staff-wise, we're looking at around 1,830 officers as of 2025. Budget for 2024 was over 16 billion yen.
And it reports to the Minister of Justice.
Correct. The Minister of Justice has oversight.
Inside the agency, how's it broken down?
You've got the General Affairs Department handles the admin, HR, planning, PR, that kind of thing. Then the intelligence wings.
Okay.
First Intelligence Department is mostly domestic focused.
Mm-hmm.
Things like monitoring citizen movements, political groups left and right wing. And there's still a unit specifically for AUM research, usually headed by a career police officer.
And the Second Intelligence Department, that's foreign.
Yes, focused outward. Can be led by a career intel person or someone from outside. It covers international terrorism, like the Japanese Red Army remnants, liaison with foreign agencies, North Korea, and a big section for China, Southeast Asia, Russia, Europe, the U.S., the whole lot.
And they have a training facility, too.
Right, out in Akishima.
And they're spread across Japan, not just Tokyo.
Definitely. They have regional bureaus, Hokkaido, Tokyo, Osaka, Fukuoka, for example, and smaller public security intelligence offices in various prefectures like Okinawa, Kyoto. A nationwide network is essential for their work.
Makes sense. Given all this, international cooperation must be important.
Absolutely crucial. They're known to have links with the CIA, FBI, Mossad, India's RAW, MI6 in the UK.
Really? Training with the CIA, even?
There have been reports of that, yes. And interestingly, they even worked with China's Ministry of State Security on counterterrorism before the Tokyo Olympics. A top Chinese official visited in 2018.
Wow. But what about their own operations overseas? Is that something they do?
It's a bit murky. Their main legal job is domestic.
Yeah.
But there have been hints of overseas activity.
Like what?
Well, years ago, reports of flyers about Japanese abductees being distributed near the China-North Korea border.
Okay.
And unconfirmed allegations stress unconfirmed about recruiting expats in China for human intelligence, though the National Police Agency was apparently skeptical of those claims.
So mostly rumors and limited actions.
It seems that way. And of course, that alleged Aro mole, who ended up defecting to North Korea, suggests some kind of overseas dimension, even if indirect.
Despite all this activity, the PSIA has faced some criticism, hasn't it?
It has. Sometimes criticized for, well, perhaps not being as effective as some would like. Part of that might be the need for PSEC approval we discussed.
That slows things down.
It can. The SSAM case again reports that requests for direct monitoring were delayed, and people often compare them to MI5 in the UK.
How so?
A key difference is arrest powers. PSIA officers can't arrest people during operations. They rely on the police for that. And they can't legally compel cooperation either.
So that limits them operationally.
Some argue it does, yes. It's seen as a constraint compared to some other agencies.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. What are the absolute key takeaways about the PSIA?
All right, number one, it's Japan's main domestic intelligence agency, born post-war under the Ministry of Justice.
Right. Job is internal security, counter-espionage.
Exactly. But needs external approval, PSEC, for investigations. Its focus has shifted over time. Cold War groups, then Adium, North Korea, and now, increasingly, economic and cyber threats.
And international links are there, but their own overseas ops are limited or unclear.
Pretty much.
Right.
And they face criticism sometimes about effectiveness, partly tied to those operational limits, like lack of arrest powers.
So hopefully this deep dive has given you, our listener, a really solid handle on what the PSIA is all about, a key part of Japan's security system.
Absolutely. You've got the history, the functions, the structure, the connections, and some of the debates surrounding it.
And maybe a final thought to leave you with. In today's world, with global security getting ever more complex, economic competition heating up, tech races, what's next for an agency like the PSIA?
Yeah, what challenges will they face? How will they adapt? How do agencies like this balance security needs with civil liberties? That's always a tough one.
And how does the very idea of a threat keep changing in the 21st century? Lots to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.